All right, thanks a lot, Mitch, and welcome everyone to this webinar today. For those of you who don't know me yet, let me give you a first introduction about myself and a very brief introduction about Hype if you haven't heard much about us yet before we actually come to the topic of today. So yeah, who am I? I'm actually a part of Hype's enterprise innovation consulting team. I've been working in this innovation management space for over 7 years now. My focus is on helping organizations of all sizes on establishing the right processes and culture for their collaborative innovation programs. So basically my day job is to conduct workshops, for example, on campaign planning, question writing, strategic alignment of innovation programs. I do trainings on culture change, community development, moderation, communication tactics, and the like. And I also do a lot of on-site, off-site coaching, mainly to support clients on a technical level with their campaigns, if the quality or quantity is not going in the right direction, what you can do on that. And finally, also me and other colleagues from my team, we do deliver hands-on support as campaign managers or community managers for clients with limited internal capacities. So as such, I'm working with clients from all over the world, large and small companies, including companies like Volkswagen, BASF, Husqvarna, and many more, mostly across Europe. Okay, so a very brief introduction on Hype. Who are we? For those of you who don't know us yet, we are around since about 2001 and are one of the largest vendors in the innovation management market with over 100 employees, based either in our headquarters in Bonn, Germany, or in one of our other offices such as Lyon, France, in London, or in the US in Boston or Boulder. And our customers are large and medium multinational corporations of all industries, including DHL, Nokia, Airbus, Liberty Global, PwC, and around 190 more. So although our core offering is our software, we understand ourselves as a solution provider. So our software just comes out of the box as a turnkey solution, including a collaborative innovation process based on our 16 years of experience. But of course, our software is also highly customizable. And so we do offer all kinds of services to adapt the software to meet your specific requirements and of course, integrate it into your existing IT environment. And last but not least, we have a team of consultants providing guidance and support to help establish this sustainable collaborative innovation program in your organization and support this on a strategic, architectural, as well as on an executional level. So this is basically what I do in my day job. All right, so much for first introduction. Let's come actually a bit closer to our topic of today. And let me first lose a few words about why we actually should involve a larger crowd into innovation. So even small and medium-sized organizations have access to thousands of people with a very diverse set of expertise, experiences, opinions, insights, and points of view. So this goes for your internal employees, of course, but also when we look outside to externals relate to, so such as customers, vendors, universities, or other partners. And those are, of course, also all people with very different personality types. So we have people that are more the kind of creative types, but we also have people that may not actually have initial ideas, but they are more the helper types, or they are rather the, let's say, the skeptics, the ones that identify risks. Or we have people which are rather more the implementers, the doer types. So we know that great ideas emerge when different people with different mindsets and expertise stick their heads together. But in large organizations, we often do not tap effectively into this creative potential and joint expertise of the employees, partners, customers, and so on. So with this collaborative online-based approach, we actually want to harness this collective creativity, expertise, and experience of this diverse crowd of people from inside and outside, and help the organization to innovate. And this is not only by sharing, by getting people to share their ideas, but more important, this is actually also to get people to share their concerns, share their expertise, get people's insights and opinions on ideas that have been already shared. So we actually want to involve everybody, all personality types, and get them to share and contribute what they can contribute. And this is, of course, not only to get more ideas from more people, but we actually also want to get more elaborated ideas. We want to get more valuable ideas. And we actually also need some way to handle the many ideas. So we need to somehow get people to help us sift out the bad ideas from the good ideas. And this is also something where we actually want to tap into the crowd. We want to hear from people what kind of risks they see, what kind of weaknesses they identify, in order to not bet on the wrong horse too early. So let's come to the main topic of today. What options exist to crowdsource ideas? Let's have a quick look at the key ingredients for innovation. And innovation typically comes in form of a new or improved offering or process, a change in business model or a solution to problem. As you probably know, the term innovation just means renewal or change, or in other words, basically an improvement to the status quo. And this requires, of course, ideas. How can we change the status quo? So furthermore, we need some insights and experiences to grow simple ideas, simple initial sparks into more rounded concepts. And of course, it needs someone to invest resources like time, money, and expertise into the idea in order to actually grow it, to build a prototype and eventually put the idea into action. But there's one more fundamental thing that every idea requires before it can emerge, and that is, of course, an underlying problem or a customer or business need that is worth tackling. So the big question is, where do these three ingredients actually come from? For the ideas and resources, it's quite clear. We want to invite a large crowd of people to come up with the ideas. And the ones that decide which ideas will actually be pursued and receive resources are, at least within an organizational context, also typically quite clear. It's the middle or senior managers. So one of the key differentiators between the two major paradigms in how we involve large groups of people into ideation is actually the question, who comes up with a need? Who comes up with a problem or opportunity that may eventually lead to an innovation or to an innovative idea? Do the ideators come up with it themselves? So first see a problem or opportunity and then try to find a way of tackling it? Or is this actually brought to the ideator in form of a given challenge? So this is what basically distinguishes the two paradigms of how to involve the crowd into the ideation process. We differentiate between, first, the bottom-up paradigm. The bottom-up paradigm basically means that we first ask our employees at the bottom to share their ideas. So we start with collecting ideas from everybody, and at the second step, we actually start looking, is there actually a need for these ideas? Do we have resources? Do the people that decide upon resources think these ideas that were brought in from the bottom think that they are actually worth investing money in? So this is what we call the bottom up, because we start down at the hierarchy and then go up with the idea and see if we actually need them. On the other hand, the top-down paradigm, the top-down approach, works exactly the opposite way. So we start actually at the top. We start with the people that have the resources, that can decide upon resources, and identify the needs first. We ask them, what do you need? What are your business needs? What are problems that need to be solved? What are opportunities that we need to tap into? Where would you invest money in if you actually get a perfect idea? And only with that, we would actually then start looking deliberately for ideas for these specific needs. So there are many different options of what we can do and how we can approach this. how you can actually involve a large group of people into this ideation process or innovation process. So some of them are actually pure bottom-up methods, something like open idea boxes, or they are pure top-down methods, something like sponsored campaigns. But there are also many common approaches that sit somewhere in between bottom-up and top-down, or can be of the one flavor or the other. So in a few minutes, I'll actually come to briefly introduce each of these approaches, what their benefits and drawbacks are, and give you here and there some more examples how companies are actually using them. But let me first come to introduce to you a little framework on how we actually can distinguish these different options. So I use this little framework which include the three key differentiating dimensions, which is time, topic specification or topic focus, and the setup, whether this is online, offline, or something in between. So let me give you a quick introduction into these three different dimensions. First of all, time. So one key differentiator between these different approaches is the question on when we actually pull the crowd into the ideation process, or whether the initiative has actually a given time frame or not. So, of course, one option is that we just say, no, there is no time limit. We always allow people to participate. So the benefit of that is, of course, that we actually can capture ideas right when they appear. So there's no chance of losing anything. We would need to consider, however, that this would, of course, result potentially in a constant flow of ideas, but we also cannot really control this very well. So sometimes we may actually be overwhelmed with too many ideas at a time, and sometimes actually we may have the opposite and not really get much into it. Another drawback of not having a time limit is that it's a very human phenomenon that people like to postpone participation. If they don't really see this has a real urgency, if they can still postpone tomorrow or next week or next month, they always find something that has a higher priority, something that's more urgent. So what happens is that quite often people would just keep their ideas forever because they just keep postponing. Okay, what about time limits? Time limits are actually helping to mitigate this last aspect that I mentioned. People actually postpone participation because we have the time pressure put on people, and this increases their motivation. What we see quite often in time-limited initiatives, if we remind the people towards the end of this time frame, towards the end of this initiative, that they still should participate, then many people actually participate then last minute because they feel, okay, now I really have to, there's no more postponement possible, so this is actually one motivation. Also, we actually can get ideas when we can actually handle them. So we have much more control of the idea flow. If we are actually fully packed and have not enough resources to really deal with new ideas, well, then we just not ask for them. And finally, of course, we'd have everybody on board at the same time, which is also quite nice. Within a certain time frame, everybody is basically somehow involved in this topic or somehow involved into this ideation process, maybe as part of your online initiative, part of is around on your platform, and this leads to higher levels of engagement and also collaboration, because everybody is thinking about the same topics, everybody is seeing each other's ideas at the same time. And so therefore, we typically have much more collaboration going on. Okay, and when we speak about time limit, as we can see up here, this may actually be Something in between. Unlimited is may be something like only lasting a few days or maybe a few hours, or it may be something lasting several weeks. But we'll come to that later when we look into the different options. Okay, next thing is topic specification. So if we decided to provide no topic or problem and give no direction, we are basically open for everything. So there's no restrictions and we accept every idea. Sure, possible. This means actually big ideas for unidentified problems, opportunities also get a chance. So in every organization, there's a group of people that has ideas for new offerings or on what to do different or better. And if they never get the chance to really share these because they are not being asked for it, then we may actually miss out on some real gems. So therefore, no topic is actually no given topic, no boundaries would maybe result in these people also sharing their gems with us. Also, another possibility or another say benefit here is actually that nobody's turned away. So all sorts of ideas actually have a fair chance to really get implemented. For example, as part of a continuous improvement program, or if your organization has an incubator program for giving more radical ideas a chance. Okay, how about focused ideation initiatives? Well, thinking about focused ideation initiatives, we'd only get ideas in line with our organization's strategy and that are related to real business needs. So if we focus, of course, we deliberately choose the right focus, and choosing our organization strategy does make sense, of course. So this helps you to get easier buy-in of middle and senior management as well, who typically has to decide on whether they want to invest into an idea or not. So having this focus on real business needs gives us a higher chance of really also getting them to pick up ideas which come in then. But focus, of course, also means that that we have some constraints and some limitations. And constraints and limitations actually help to trigger creativity. Many people may intuitively say, no, boundaries and limitations hurt the creative process and stifle great ideas. But, well, we actually have to accept the fact that in reality, there are always some boundaries or limitations. May this be strategy, some resources, budgets, time, technical requirements, laws, social norms, or procedures that we have to follow. So boundaries and limitations are just part of the real life. So for example, if you're actually being told to come up with an idea for the next big thing in electronics, your brain may drift actually in every direction to identify a need or problem first, constantly thinking if this is actually an important enough need or problem. But if instead you're being told to, for example, come up with ideas for social smartphone apps to better connect elderly people, which are implementable within 3 man-months, you're of course restricted in your freedom with developing ideas, but it actually takes away the burden of finding this problem first, finding the need first, and hence it actually frees up your mental resources to work on just the important stuff, which is, of course, to come up with a creative solution and not worry too much about the underlying problems. So it is much easier to ideate around a given challenge or opportunity, as it gives the creative mind basically a starting point and a rough direction. And the last argument for focused ideation initiatives is actually that it has a positive impact on motivation and engagement. Many people are intrinsically motivated to solve problems. Just think of, for example, to solve a riddle or solve a Sudoku. There's, of course, no purpose in doing that. It's just for fun. You're just intrinsically motivated because there's a challenge. You try to solve this riddle, or solve a Sudoku or a Rubik's Cube or whatever. But also the fact that there is an actual given need or problem, and they are actually asked, so the ideators are actually asked for their ideas, is already motivating. So because the chances for their ideas to get recognized are, of course, potentially much, much higher, or ideas not just getting recognized, but also getting implemented if there's a real business need behind, if there's a sponsor, for example, coming to me and asking for my ideas. Okay, so as mentioned, there are many different options in between bottom-up and top-down, different possibilities of how we can involve a large group of people into the ideation process. And in the following, we would actually want to have a closer look at these different options. So let's start off with the first one, with the classical open idea box. So key principles of an open idea box, I guess most of you know, it's that everybody can submit ideas at any time on any topic, and this can be through like a paper-based version, very classical, old school suggestion box. This may, of course, also be through some terminals, or maybe even through some mobile phones. Then you'd have to have a responsible idea manager that's actually ensuring the quality, and that especially then has to pick up the idea and identify a potential owner in the organization. So this is actually quite common approach, open idea boxes in continuous improvement programs and suggestion schemes. For example, almost every larger German organization has these kind of approaches for continuous improvement and suggestion schemes. So what are the benefits of this? Well, of course, it's quite easy to set up. So collecting many ideas can be done quite quickly. And there's a low barrier to participate because there are no restrictions. Everybody's invited. It's quite easy to write down your idea and submit it. But this actually also leads to a drawback because quite often these ideas are often underdeveloped. So we do not really have quite often good quality. We have to go back to the ideators to improve their idea. And this, of course, takes a lot of time and to manage all of these incoming suggestions. This leads then again, to process bottlenecks quite often because, first of all, if we don't have the right quality of ideas, if we don't have ideas that go in a certain that solve a specific problem, then the person that have to decide whether this idea should get a resource, whether this idea should get implemented, of course, might actually not be able to make this decision and might not give feedback, or it may just take a long time. Okay, so but there are some, let's say, some alternatives to these open idea boxes that we see nowadays. And one alternative to this always open idea box, which is basically just asking for all kinds of input, is actually a theme-based idea channels. Still timely, unlimited time-wise, unrestricted. However, we actually focus the ideation process on certain channels, on certain themes. So these may actually be some themes which are focused on relevant aspects like our company strategy, something like operational excellence, corporate social responsibility, safety, product leadership, digitalization, whatever is part of your company strategy. So we have not just one open idea box, but we basically have several smaller ones. A benefit of this approach would be that we can assign responsibilities for each of the idea boxes. So we may actually have a different person responsible, a different team of people responsible for all ideas related to corporate social responsibility. Maybe, and ideally, this might be a person that is also sitting in the relevant department. And of course, we may also have an individual evaluation process for ideas coming in through CSR, because CSR may have their own criteria, their own selection criteria, may have their own let's say, rules what ideas should actually fulfill. And of course, the benefit is also that this already gives the ideator some kind of direction on what is actually needed. So if you actually come up with an idea on digitalization, but well, maybe digitalization is not a good example, but you come up with an idea on some other topic that is not really a part of these theme-based channels, you already know that you have lower chances of really getting your idea through. Another alternative to an open idea box is actually to have some recurring open campaigns. So this would mean that we actually close and reopen this open idea channel on a regular basis. We turn this open idea channel actually into campaigns. So campaigns lasting, for example, 2 to 3 weeks, and we launch this, let's say, every 6 months. At the beginning of every second quarter, we let for 2 to 3 weeks all kinds of open ideas coming in, and then we close this again. So everybody would know, since this is recurring, everybody would know when they actually have this time window open, when they can submit their idea. So this has one benefit that people may actually over the time think, well, my idea wasn't that great, wasn't that important, maybe I just leave it behind. So you may already have some ideas, some not so relevant ideas not getting really submitted. On the other hand, and the biggest benefit here is that you can also plan ahead with your resources a bit better. So once these 3 weeks are over, once the campaign is closed, you know how many ideas you have, and you can start working on actually following up on the ideas and don't have to deal with new constantly incoming ideas. And of course, what we also have here again is this benefit of having this time limit, meaning that people may actually have some higher motivation to really participate, because as goes for every campaign, we would always have to communicate the launch of such a campaign. We have to communicate in between how much time there is left, send some reminders. And so this time pressure again may make people to really act and not keep postponing. But of course, we may also have a mixture of the last two versions, meaning we can also have some theme-based recurring open campaigns. So meaning we have this, we don't have an open idea box for every topic, but we limit it to certain topics which are relevant to us: corporate social responsibility, operational excellence, safety, product, whatever. It may also be your product categories, for example. And again, we actually turn these into campaigns. So it's just a combination of the two previous versions. So just to give you an example, as mentioned, these bottom-up based ideation programs, open idea boxes in different variations, are still being used quite a lot today. And as I said, especially in many large German companies, this is a pretty big thing. To give you an idea of what I'm talking about is Deutsche Post, DHL, for example, had in 2011, for example, in their open idea box, 214,000 submitted ideas from their 472,000 employees at that time. 174,000 of these ideas actually got implemented, which is quite a lot. And it actually brought them 234 million euros in savings. And out of this, actually, the costs for implementing these ideas were actually only 8 million. But as you can imagine, they actually have to have quite a large team of people to really handle all of this. And just another example from Continental, a large German car parts manufacturer with 212,000 employees. They had in 2016 470,000 ideas, which led to savings of 124 million euros. And over the last 4 years altogether, they had over 500 million euros of savings just from ideas coming from the bottom to the top through employees. Yeah, so as you can imagine, in order to maintain such programs with such large numbers of ideas, the companies really have to have large teams of idea managers and sophisticated processes. I just read the other day that Volkswagen has over 50 idea managers, which are full-time idea managers, plus another large number of people that are basically in every department or in different business units, which have to handle all of this. Just another example for an open topic campaign from Liberty Global. Liberty Global, in case you don't know them, they are the world's largest cable service provider. And what they did, for example, they ran a campaign on identifying cost-saving potentials in processes and products. So they actually said they wanted to find simplifications and smartifications, and actually said every idea that you submit should at least be saving 100,000 euros or more by the end of the actual year. I think that was in 2016. So they invited all of their employees and eventually had got 162 ideas, about 10 times as many comments. So a lot of collaboration going on. And out of these, there were actually 9 concepts selected for implementation, which actually led to yearly savings of over 50 million euro. So quite a lot of savings just from 162 ideas that initially got submitted. If you're keen on learning a little bit more on that, I suggest you watch this little video where I put the link in here. You'll get the slides later on, so you can get the link as well. It's quite nice, quite nicely explaining the outcome of this actual campaign, a video that was shared internally to convince middle and top managers to also run such campaigns and basically to promote the whole innovation initiative. Okay, let's come to the next option, the next possibility, what you can do in order to include your employees into the ideation process. And these are, of course, face-to-face workshops. So face-to-face workshops can have very different flavors. Obviously, face-to-face workshops are much more social because people typically come together, so therefore it's more fun. People are normally fully dedicated because you actually get all together in one room, so you don't do anything like 10 things in parallel as you might want to do, as you might do when you do it online. And so the result is typically maybe, depending on how long it is, if it's 2 hours or 2 days, you typically get quite many ideas in a pretty short time. A drawback is, of course, you have to find some time and place where everybody that you want to invite really has time and can come to. And of course, we are limited in size normally. We cannot invite 10,000 people as you can with an online campaign, but you can only invite maybe 50. Another drawback is that you may actually have in some rounds some more dominant people. So not everybody can speak in parallel, as some are more dominant, more extroverted. And another drawback of face-to-face workshops is or might be to process the results. So it's quite easy to do brainstorming and come up with lots of many ideas, and maybe you can still cluster them. But then what are you going to do with that? And so that is something where you actually may have to do some manual work to type your ideas into a computer for further processing and archiving. Obviously, there are plenty of different techniques, different games for ideation, just in regular brainstorming. There's brainwriting, innovation digging, disruptors, and you name it. Lots of different techniques. And what's quite nice, there are also nowadays so many different techniques and methods that just go beyond ideation, so also serving other parts of the innovation process. So also the initial problem identification part, the idea clustering, evaluation part, idea enrichment, or even the prototyping. So I can highly recommend the book Liberating Structures, or the website Liberating Structures, which actually has a ton of different techniques which are available. And yeah, I can highly recommend to check this out if you're searching for something that suits you. Of course, these offline webinars can also be combined with online webinars. And if you're more interested in that, I can recommend a webinar that I actually did a while ago on this, which is called How to Combine Online and Offline Ideation Most Effectively. You can find it on YouTube as well, or through our website. And there's one more program that I actually want to point out as a great example for a multi-stage face-to-face workshop approach, where people actually get involved not only in the ideation phase, but also in the entire innovation process. And this is Kickbox. Kickbox was originally invented by Adobe, but was made open source so that other companies can actually adopt it. And one company that did that was our client, Liberty Global. So to give you a little bit more of a background on the program, Kickbox, or Matchbox as Liberty Global calls it, is kind of a lean startup methodology based innovation bootcamp for your organization, with the main goal to change your culture, to create actually innovators and not innovation. So therefore, it is typically aimed at all kinds of employees in the organization, not just the innovators, but you want to change the culture. So you want to make basically everybody become an innovator, and therefore you can actually invite everyone to this. Initially, you would invite groups of 30 to 50 people for a 2-day workshop where they actually get handed out actual kick boxes, or as Liberty Global has adopted it, they call it Matchbox. It contains, besides some gimmicks like caffeine and sugar, also some guidelines and permission from their line manager to spend 30 to 40 hours over the next 6 to 8 weeks on developing their own ideas, as well as some budget to actually pursue their projects. So Liberty Global, for example, provided 500 euro prepaid credit cards, which can be freely used, for example, for meeting with your team, or also you can use it for building 3D models with a 3D printer, or if you need to buy some other resources, some software license or whatever, nobody will ask a question. The 500 euros are yours for you to spend on developing your idea further. So the participants are actually then introduced and guided through this process. They receive lots of tools and methods to apply to their own project, which they develop basically step by step. And the program consists of 6 different phases. And the first phase is inception, where it's all about understanding your true purpose to innovate, finding the personal motivation and getting inspired. The second phase is the ideation phase, learning to spark your imagination through some ideation exercises. The phase number 3 is the improve phase, where it's about growing bad ideas into good ideas by evaluating each other's suggestions, by picking some ideas and completing for the selected ideas business model canvases. The fourth phase is investigate, which basically is all about validating the idea through real-world experiments, such as interviewing potential consumers and building prototypes. Whereas the fifth phase is iterate. It's about preparing for pitching your idea, for selling it to senior executives. The iterate phase is, of course, about revealing the true nature of your idea. It's about refining your value proposition and continue to test this with potential consumers. And the sixth phase is the infiltrate phase, where it's about preparing for pitching your idea, for selling it to senior executives, to endorse your project, and invest in funding your next round of experiments. So finally, all ideas and the teams that made it through these 6 phases are invited to pitch their ideas in front of a jury consisting typically of some highly ranked executives, basically similar to what you might know from popular TV shows like Shark Tank or Dragon's Den or Lion's Cave, as it's called in Germany. And in case of Liberty Global, they actually trialed this kickbox approach at their Irish daughter Virgin Media. And they initially invited 50 colleagues from across the business, out of which 15 actually made it with their ideas all the way through to level 6. And so therefore pitched in front of this their so-called shark pit. No, spark pit, that's the name. 8 of these ideas were then actually selected and got funded to test and develop them further in a similar approach. So 8 out of 15 ideas were eventually successful. So if you actually want to learn more about this approach, how this was adopted and received at Liberty Global, or if you need some more help to run this program in your own organization, feel free to contact us at Hype, but I also recommend to check out these really cool videos that Liberty Global actually made on their Matchbox program, and also, of course, the original website kickbox.adobe.com, where you'll actually find plenty of material that you can freely use, as Adobe was kind enough to make the whole Kickbox program open source, including all the materials. So you can just adopt it just a similar way as Liberty Global did. Okay, let's move on. Next possibility for involving your crowd into the ideation phase is through something like startup challenges. The key principles are that you're searching for some big ideas for products, services, or business models. Normally, it's following the lean startup principle. So build, measure, learn is the key principle here. It is normally topic-wise quite unrestricted. So maybe we have some themes, some company strategy that is actually giving some guidelines, but nevertheless, just like with the startup, people are rather free in how they participate and what kind of project they come up with. And again, here with the startup challenge approach, similar to what we actually have seen with Adobe Kickbox, the participants actually get involved in the whole idea creation process, but of course also in the elaboration phase, in the prototyping phase, in testing and selling their ideas. And what we see quite often from customers that use this, they combine actually different online and offline phases with this. We'll see an example in a second. So the benefit of this is that we do have a clear idea owner beyond the ideation phase, as the ideator is actually staying involved and basically has to take care of the idea. And same as for the Kickbox program, participants learn to innovate. So this is also kind of like an education program where it's not just about the outcome and the actual ideas that get developed, but also learning about all the methods. Some drawbacks are that this requires quite high level of involvement from the people, which means that people may actually not be motivated to spend so much time on their idea, or maybe they're just not so keen on pitching in front of C-level. So therefore, you may actually miss out on some smart people which just say, okay, I have better things to do, or I'm just not such an outgoing person, or maybe I start my own startup. And another drawback that is sometimes there taking place is that it's quite competitive, meaning that in some cases that I've seen, that there's only basically a winner takes it all approach. Only one idea wins, one idea gets funded, and therefore we have lots of people spending lots of time in developing their ideas, but only one eventually really gets all the let's say all the recognition, and one only gets especially the time and funding. So one example for this from a global player in a chemical industry for a startup challenge, they actually ran an internal startup challenge starting last year, which lasted 8 months and was open to all their 15,000 employees. There was no topic focus, only restriction was that there has to be some strategic fit. There was some high top management support and communication, so a lot of announcements, different events, a lot of buzz, let's say, being created with the support of top management. And it was a mix of online campaigns and different offline elements. So there were 7 phases. First, initial ideation campaign, where ideas could be submitted, shared, voted, commented, and so on. There was followed by a pre-selection phase. So during 4 weeks, a team of evaluators actually reviewed all the ideas and selected 25 ideas for the next phase. For an enhancement phase, in which these submitters of the top 25 ideas actually were asked to further adjust and enhance their idea. They got some coaching. Then there was a second online campaign, which was mostly there to present these 25 reworked ideas again, and to find some team members, some people that support you in the following. For example, if you are missing out on somebody with some commercial background or somebody with some technical skills, you would basically find the person here, and eventually with these people present your team, present your startup again on the platform. And the selection was made during a 1.5 week phase. All the 25 teams and ideas were reviewed again, and the top 6 were selected. So these top 6 ideas then had 3 months of time. They all went to a innovation boot camp, got lots of training, got a mentor, got a lot of support to develop their ideas and form something more like a concept out of the ideas. And eventually this was pitched in a final event, similar to what we've seen with a Shark Tank or Lion's Cave. So it was a 20-minute pitch event to a jury of different senior executives. The results from this internal startup challenge were actually that they had 577 initial ideas, quite a lot of people commenting, 1,200 comments, 6,000 votes, and basically 10% of all their employees were active and took part in this. The winning team received 12 months of full-time to implement their idea, and a budget of €1 million. So they really could basically create a startup with that and fully work now on this, on their idea, on their concept. Okay, let's move on. Next, second last option to involve your crowd into the ideation phase is via idea jams. So typical characteristics are that, first of all, they're very short. They're typically only 1, 2, or maximum 3 days. typically you would have a rather broad topic, because you want to involve in these 3 days as many people as possible. Normally you'd have to have some broad topics that everybody can relate to. You would have to announce and inspire people up front. Of course, in 1, 2, 3 days, these are quickly over. You better make sure that you communicate that up front, create a buzz, get everybody on board on that day. The benefits are, of course, you have some high engagement then if you create this buzz, if you have some marketing communication around this. You would also normally have some kind of corporate event around this with top management actually announcing this. And yeah, you get normally some good numbers of ideas in quite a short time. The drawback is that you have so many ideas at a short time at one moment. You, of course, also have to process all of this. Another one is that this marketing communication takes quite a lot of effort, and we have a lot of content, and this may actually stifle collaboration, because the initial idea submitter, if they get bombarded with 20 different comments, all people asking different questions, the collaboration process may not really work as it's supposed to do. And of course, in 1, 2, 3 days, not everybody might be able to join in because they are on vacation, they are sick, or maybe they have something much more important to do, so you potentially miss out on some people. Okay, I'm quite conscious of time, so I'm not going to go through this example here from Volvo. They actually just also ran such an idea jam, but let me skip this. You can check this out on the slides later on. And let me come to the last approach here, which are actually sponsored idea campaigns. So the typical characteristics are they normally have a runtime of 2 to 3 weeks. Quite important is that we have a management sponsor with a real business need. So this is actually the owner of the campaign that also commits to really pick up ideas, invest in ideas if they fulfill their need, if they actually solve their problem. For a sponsored idea campaign, you would typically create an engaging campaign question stating the topic focus, the scope, what we need and what we don't need, and of course, also explain what are the next steps, because that should always be clear with an idea campaign. What are we going to do with the ideas? When are we going to evaluate these? What are we going to do with the best ones? And with a sponsored idea campaign, you can typically create or you can decide who you want to invite. You might want to invite a certain target audience, so only a fraction of your available people, or you might want to invite the whole company, the whole business unit, or maybe even external participants. Benefits of this is the main benefit that you get the right ideas at the right time. You secure resources up front. Because we ask the sponsor, are you having resources to really pick up ideas, to implement ideas if they solve your problem, if they serve your business need? This leads normally to a higher motivation because people see there's someone from the business behind. And also, since we have different people in a certain time frame focused on one specific topic, we have a lot more collaboration going on in between the different people. And one of the only drawbacks actually is that, of course, there's a chance to miss out on great ideas. If we only run campaigns, we eventually may not really get the ask the right question for getting some great ideas which are in some people's head. Okay, so 2 minutes left. Let me quickly come to summarize and provide you some key considerations. We have looked at 7 different options on how to involve your crowd into the ideation process. So some key considerations. First of all, generate ideas in line with your capacity. If your organization can't digest many ideas, don't ask for it. There's just no point in that. You just waste a lot of people's time. You'd frustrate people if you cannot really do anything with the ideas if you just have not capacity. Don't ask for fun just to see what's out there, because it will upset people in the long run. And again, yeah, just costs a lot of time. Many companies actually switch today from a bottom-up approach to an approach that gives them more control of ideation process. So something like theme-based channels or sponsored campaigns. That is what we see quite a lot. If you're completely new to online innovation management, we recommend to start off with small tactical campaigns to gain experience and build some first success stories, as they actually help you to gain trust and belief in the process, both from management as well as from employees. And consider adding theme-based channels over time. So as I said, you might actually not want to miss out on some other great ideas. And there may also be some topics where ideas can always be processed, such as typical continuous improvement topics. So you may actually want to add this over time, but only when you actually have some idea how many ideas you might get. And yeah, if you have the feeling you can really handle the ideas that come in. Then use face-to-face workshops where it's appropriate. There are always certain groups of people that are really hard to get motivated and to take the time to participate in online initiatives. So involving these people as part of a face-to-face workshop may actually motivate them to become generally more active in innovation initiatives. So we are not saying don't do face-to-face workshops just because we're a software provider, but face-to-face workshops are also good things. And as I said, they are more social, more interactive. So therefore, also keep them in your portfolio of activities. And finally, startup challenges, hackathons, something like Kickbox, for example, they are pretty good additions to mature innovation programs. You probably would not want to start off with a hackathon or with a startup challenge, mainly because first they only address and engage a limited group of people. So not the really breadth of your employees or the people that you want to get on board. And also it requires quite some budget and resources for organizing this and such events, around it, and also for, of course, to invest in ideas to develop these ideas further. So start off small rather with some campaigns, because you have much more control. See what you can digest, what your organization can digest, and then move on.